Even in Chicago, there are reasonable people. Council opposition wins round 1 in budget battle with Mayor Johnson. A renegade group of conservative and moderate alderpersons is stymieing Let's Go Brandon Johnson on his just wackadoodle budget proposal. Let's get into it. Here we go. People in Chicago, all my papes that followed the whole Tiffany Henyard thing. You've got a mayor that's not quite firing on all cylinders. He wants to tax you even more. Listen to your, and I know you're going to hate to hear this, listen to your conservative and your moderate alderpersons who are saying, you know what? I don't think this is a good idea, because it's not. Whatever Let's Go Brandon Johnson proposes, if it sounds like he's saying percentages that don't quite make sense with reality, it's because he's probably not. Council members who oppose Brandon Johnson's proposed budget and its corporate head tax, shoving business away from Chicago, from Illinois. Tens of thousands of businesses have literally left Illinois. This is only going to do more to push more businesses away, not bring them in. I know you got a budget deficit. We're going to look at that as well. So they have made more than the 26 votes needed to pass their alternate spending plan, which steers clear of short-term financial fixes. That's what they're calling it, that threaten Chicago's beleaguered bond rating. You've got a municipal bond rating in Chicago that is not looking good, and that is the cost of money when Chicago goes to borrow it, right? Municipal bond rating. From this article, this is at the tail end of Wednesday's city council meeting, a renegade group of conservative and moderate alderpersons. So, renegade. So people who make good financial decisions are now considered renegade. Because usually when you've got a progressive mayor like you do in Let's Go Brandon Johnson, you just got a bunch of nut jobs running around going, yeah, let's just tax the F out of everything and we'll see how it goes. That includes Johnson's hand-picked finance committee chair, is one of the renegade conservative and moderate alderpersons. Introduced $409 million worth of amendments to the mayor's proposed budget. When it came time to set the date and time for the next meeting, Alderman Anthony Beale introduced a substitute resolution laying out a rapid-fire schedule for the next 5 city council meetings, culminating in a final vote days before Christmas. So what do you have? You've got a situation where, let's go ahead and hear about the new head tax proposal. If you haven't been following this, if you're not from Chicago and you're wondering why in the F is the real estate guy in Seattle covering this, because this is a big push across the United States with these progressive and socialist mayors to tax you, the constituent, and call it basically they're taxing big business and wealthy people, but in the end, it's going to be taxing you because all the businesses and wealthy people are going to leave. That leaves you, the taxpayer, the constituent, to pick up the bill. We're already seeing that in Chicago, right? I've covered this numerous times. The tax increases that you guys have seen in Chicago, the West Side and South Side, holy smokes, what a spanking. Let's go ahead and let's watch this video here.
Judy, the mayor's new head tax proposal now only goes after companies with more than 500 employees instead of 100. And while it might protect some small to mid-sized companies from the pain, opponents say philosophically it's bad for business and it won't change their minds. Mayor Brandon Johnson offering a compromise head tax plan that he hopes will be more palatable to any opponents who might be on the fence. The new proposal would tax Chicago companies with more than 500 employees at $33 per employee per month. The original plan impacted those with more than 100 employees, charging $21 per employee per month. The mayor says his community safety surcharge would only impact about 100.
This is called a community safety surcharge. Haven't we already funded community safety 10 ways from Sunday? And then genius, Let's Go Brandon Johnson, pulls out ShotSpotter, right? Pulls out ShotSpotter. What a terrible decision. I mean, the very things that money can be spent on to help citizens in Chicago not get shot, have the police be there, Johnny, on the spot when you need to. Yeah, let's go. Brandon Johnson's just like, no, boop, let's get rid of them.
75 of the largest corporations in the city.
The community safety surcharge would account for roughly 0.0008% of their annual revenue. That's less than 1,000%.
Pat,
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because when you're a business and you're paying that and you're paying all kinds of other crap that you have to pay in Illinois, and you look at a state like Texas, you look at a state like Florida, and you go, why aren't we there? What? Screw this guy. We're going there. And that's what they've done. That's what they've done. In droves. And that's why you guys your tax bills in Chicago are just incrementally going up. Now let's listen to this. This is I think this is the finance committee chairperson. And I totally agree with her. Here we go. Let's back it up just a tad here.
Pat Dowell, the influential chair of the Finance Committee, remains staunchly opposed.
I think this is the current proposal is making a bad policy even worse.
All these small inputs, like a head tax, determine whether or not a big employer moves to a city like Chicago. And this is simply another symbol of why you shouldn't come here. And I think it's a big, big mistake.
The mayor counting on...
Full stop. Full stop. Yeah, let's go. Brandon Johnson is taxing you and pushing businesses away into oblivion. It's not just let's go Brandon Johnson. You've got Mamdani, socialist incoming mayor in New York City. I mean, yeah, that's not going to be good. Seattle, same thing. We just brought in a socialist mayor. We're going to have to see how that goes. But it's not conducive to business. When you've got mayors that are either progressive or socialist, they just want to tax big business, and big business looks at that and goes, no, we're leaving. Bye-bye.
And big companies being willing to pay the price and stay in Chicago, even if they oppose the head tax.
These huge corporations are not going to make a financial decision based upon what essentially could be a rounding error.
But it's the decisions of a...
This is how Let's Go Brandon Johnson justifies it to you, folks in Chicago. This is basically a tiny, tiny, tiny little percentage. You add all the percentages up, and it's just one more reason for business to leave. These are your employers. These are people that your constituents, your taxpayers work for. You take away those employers, what do you got? You got unemployed people, and you got a tax base that has to have further taxes put on it because there's no more businesses to tax. They all left. They went bye-bye.
Majority of city council members that the mayor needs to focus on first, with 27 now supporting an alternative budget.
If it's prepared and ready to go tomorrow, we'll introduce it tomorrow. And if not, we'll introduce it later.
The mayor also seeming confident of his plan getting passed.
Now, in terms of when we actually put it up on the board, we'll talk with our IGA team. I'm ready to go now, right? I mean, I believe that the budget that I presented was ready to go.
So it's possible the alders or even the mayor could introduce a budget plan tomorrow, not for a vote, though, but it seems unlikely at this point. What it will come down to is which side believes they have the 26 votes needed to pass the budget, and that has to be done by the end of the year.
Right, so that's not changing.
So that's why you've got a massive push on this. You got to have this done by the end of the year. Will that happen? See what we've got here. So here's what the opposition, the renegade group of alder people. We used to say aldermen. That does sound kind of sexist, doesn't it? What about the women? Well, they're men. Proposed corporate head tax will be replaced by a $15 a month garbage collection fee. It's been frozen at $9.50 a month since 2015. A 3% tax on off-premise liquor sales, and a return to the mayor's original and more ambitious plan to apply the city's 10.25% amusement tax to rides on Uber and Lyft. You're also going to lift the Chicago ban on video gambling at restaurants, hotels, yada, yada. And you got a social media tax. and a new 10% surcharge on short-term vacation rentals with Airbnb and Vrbo. All right. Okay. So you're going to have to increase the taxes somewhere, right? You're just going to have to do that. Now, you've got a $1.15 billion shortfall in 2026. You got a $146 million gap in current year, fiscal year 2025. Keep that in mind. $1.15 billion shortfall. That is what we are worked up about. How are we going to close that gap? Let's go. Brandon Johnson wants to apply progressive revenue taxation to big business after big business has already left in droves. And everybody's basically come right out. Your county assessor has come right out. Cook County assessor has come right out and said, hey, we got a decline in tax revenues from the downtown core because there ain't no businesses there. Because you pushed all the businesses out. And downtown cores across the United States have had an issue with the work from home policy during the pandemic. Nobody came back to work in the big offices. So you've got all of the tax revenue loss from your downtown core. You're being spread out on the individual taxpayers. And some of the stories I've seen are just nuts. So $1.5 billion shortfall, right? Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this little gem. Illinois projected to spend $2.5 billion on migrants by the end of 2025, report claims. $2.5 billion? How much was our budget deficit? $1 billion and change? And you guys were all on board with the whole sanctuary city, sanctuary state deal, right? I mean, all my peeps in Chicago, you guys were all on board with that, right? I mean, they let you vote on that, right? No? Huh. It just got jammed down your throat and your taxpayers' dollars went to the criminal illegals? $2.5 billion worth? See what I'm saying here? Does this make any sense to you at all? You got money flying out the window left and right, just like I do here in Washington State. We've got an income tax coming in. I mean, we know we've got an income tax coming in. It's writing is on the wall. You got to have all kinds of taxes to afford this kind of ridiculousness. $2.5 billion on migrants. By the end of this year, it's already been spent. What's it going to need moving forward? Most of it poured into healthcare costs. All right. That's perfect. That's excellent. Of the $2.5 billion, Illinois Public Policy Institute added the taxpayer funding was allocated to healthcare as well as migrant welcome centers. Hey, come on into our community. We'll pay for everything. Rental assistance. They got free housing in your market. They took whatever was available and sucked it up. Your rents are going through the roof. Blame this kind of nonsense. The report added that Illinois has allocated $478 million since 2023 for migrant benefits through the Welcoming with Dignity initiative. How much money did you guys get? Constituents that have been paying taxes in Chicago, in Illinois for years, for decades. How much of that money did you guys get? None? Oh, that's because you paid for it. The report further explained that the Illinois state government spent over $1.6 billion on two programs that cover healthcare costs for migrants. We got one here. Health benefits for immigrant adults age 42 to 64 was cut due to budgetary should have never happened. Let's go, Brandon Johnson. He said, oh, we love everybody. Come on in. And so Governor Abbott from Texas said, I heard you loud and clear. Yeehaw, let's go. And he sent 51,000 criminal illegals into Chicago, into Illinois. Now you guys are paying for it. And now you've got a budget deficit of how much? Originally, senior program be $224 million. Actually, it ended up being $412 million. So let's just round it up to $500 million. So you got money just flying around left and right because you've got leadership that doesn't really give a crap. They just want a virtue signal. Because I don't think the constituents who are paying massive amounts of taxes in Chicago, I don't think they were on board for, hey, let's take our hard-earned taxpayer dollars and we'll support a bunch of criminal illegals coming across the border that don't deserve to be here because they haven't gone through the right avenues. They came into the country illegally. But because you're in a Democrat-run state, you're in a Democrat city, Chicago, you're very progressive. How's that progress working out? So let's get back to the original topic here. Mayor Brandon Johnson and his opponents remained far apart Wednesday on a deal for a 2026 budget plan. At issue is the mayor's revised proposal for a corporate head tax, which his critics see as a job killer. 100% agree. It's a job killer. You've already seen what that does. You've already seen what that does in Seattle. We had the jumpstart payroll tax. Amazon said, that's interesting. That's going to affect our bottom line pretty hard. We've got options. We're going to send 10,000 jobs, 12,000 jobs to Bellevue, where I'm sitting. And that's what happened. So it's not a question of, well, would that maybe happen? And Illinois, you've already seen thousands and thousands and thousands of companies, boom, gone. And their counterproposal, which among other taxes and fees would increase garbage collection fees despite a veto threat from the mayor. You know, any of these fees are unnecessary because there is so much waste already. There's so much nonsensical waste, especially $2.5 billion on the criminal illegals. I mean, seriously, honestly, your leadership is just saying, hey, you guys love this. We know you love the criminal illegals. We know you love them. A group of aldermen aligned against the mayor's budget indicated they have more than the 26 votes required to prevent the mayor's head tax proposal and push through some ideas of their own. As long as it doesn't have that head tax, I understand you're going to have to squeeze the budget. You're going to have to increase taxes. You're going to have to cut some stuff. The Democrats don't like to cut. Tax and spend, not cut the budget, not live within the budget. And so when I say that, Governor Abbott, he decided early on, if the federal policy, if Joe Biden's policy is going to be to bring all of these criminal illegals in, we're going to have to do something. And that's when he and Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, this is where the vast majority of the illegals were coming in, right? Specifically along the southern border in Texas. That's why I went there twice to see what was going on, because it was absolute insanity. In 2023, 2 years ago, month of December, I'm recording this. 302,000 criminal illegals came across the border into Texas. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. And so Abbott said, well, we're going to ship them off, and started shipping them off. And he's been shipping them off for a long time. You guys took 51,000 of them. Illinois did. Chicago did. So that decision being made by Texas, where does that leave them? How much of a budget deficit do they have? How often are you hearing about Governor Greg Abbott in Texas complaining that, my constituents and everybody's against me? They just don't understand. It's only a tiny percentage. How much is Greg Abbott bitching in Texas about his budget deficit? Trick question. He's not, because as you've probably figured out, Texas has nearly a $24 billion surplus. Right now, Greg Abbott estimates it's at $27 billion surplus. That is after sending millions and millions of dollars worth of bus rides, taking care of people initially when they come into the state, come into the country in Texas. Texas has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on that whole thing. But you guys in Chicago, who are far away and didn't need to take on that tax burden, you guys just went, I think this is the greatest thing ever, by voting in somebody like Let's Go Brandon Johnson. So Texas has nearly a $24 billion surplus, and it's my understanding it's about $27 billion, projected to have more than $28 billion in rainy day fund. What political party is Texas typically associated with? Yeah, Republican. And they've got a budget surplus. Weird. Is there a correlation there? I don't know, right? Now, of course there is. One, Republicans try to live fiscally conservative, try to live within their budget. don't spend money on just ridiculous horse's ass things. Like, let's direct the buses here so we can be, virtue signaling. And you know what was so crazy about Let's Go Brandon Johnson and all the criminal illegals? After a while, after you'd spent like $250 million on just stuff, because when you bring 51,000 people into your community, they're going to have babies. They're going to need clothes. They don't have jobs initially. They're going to need food. They're going to need healthcare. They're going to need anything that you need, they need as well. Maybe not a car, but hey, let's give them free bus passes. And Chicago did that. Illinois did that across the board, right? For the virtue signaling factor, because you can't take care of everybody. And Chicago isn't even taking care of you guys, the constituents, right now. They're taxing you to the wall. They're absolutely pinning you to the wall. So thankfully, you've got a handful of alderpersons that are kind of pushing back. And we knew we would see this. What taxes will you end up incurring? Probably a bunch. But bottom line is a lot of this, it doesn't need to be. It's completely unnecessary. The stuff that Let's Go Brandon Johnson continually rattles on about is unnecessary. You don't need to be spending money. It's misallocation of funds, like the criminal illegals. Oh yeah, sign us up. Give us 51,000. Greatest concept ever. Good heavens, they're expensive. Wow, we spent how much? 2.5 billion? Well, I hope the people don't really see those numbers at all. Now you've seen them. This is what you're working with. These are not hard stories to put together. Am I minimizing a lot of the other storylines? Absolutely. But broad strokes, this is just stuff that a real estate guy pulls up on the interweb and then talks about. Not that hard to figure out. But here we are, right? Here we are. Wild stuff. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.